The fluorescent lights of the veterinary clinic cast harsh shadows across Dr. Sarah Mitchell's face as she stared at the documents before her, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for her pen. Outside her office window, rain pelted against, the glass matching her somber mood. The decision she was about to make, euthanizing a champion racehorse named Thunder's Spirit, seemed straightforward on paper. But what happened next would challenge everything she believed about fate, healing, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning had started like any other at Riverside Veterinary Hospital, just outside Louisville, Kentucky. Dr. Mitchell, a respected equine veterinarian with 15 years of experience, was reviewing her cases when Marcus Reynolds, owner of the prestigious Reynolds Racing Stables, strode through her door. His expensive suit and commanding presence filled the room, but it was the cold determination in his eyes that caught her attention. "Thunder's Spirit's leg isn't healing properly," Marcus announced without preamble, his voice clipped and businesslike. "The last race took its toll. We need to make a decision, and we need to make it now." Sarah knew Thunder's Spirit well. A magnificent bay stallion with a white star on his forehead and a spirit that seemed to touch everyone who met him. The horse had earned millions in prize money for Reynolds Racing Stables, but now, after a devastating injury during the Kentucky Derby qualifying rounds, he could barely walk. "Have you considered rehabilitation options?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. The costs of long-term recovery for a racehorse were astronomical, and most owners weren't willing to invest in a horse that might never race again. Marcus's laugh was sharp and without humor. "Dr. Mitchell, let's be realistic. That horse has served his purpose. Now he's just eating into my profits. I've already got his replacement lined up." He pulled out a thick envelope and placed it on her desk. "Here's the paperwork. I want it done today." Sarah's throat tightened as she examined the documents. Everything was in order. The owner's authorization, the medical history, the liability releases. On paper, it was a straightforward case: a severely injured racehorse with a poor prognosis for recovery. Euthanasia was the humane option. Or at least that's what owners like Marcus Reynolds told themselves to sleep better at night. But as she looked out her window toward the stables where Thunder's Spirit waited, something didn't sit right. The beige horse's recent examinations showed signs of improvement, however slight. There was still fight in his eyes, still that spark that had made him a champion. "I'd like to do one more examination," she said firmly, rising from her desk. Marcus's expression darkened, but Sarah was already heading toward the stables, her white coat billowing behind her. Thunder's Spirit stood in his stall, his magnificent head hanging slightly, but his ears perked up at Sarah's approach. Despite his injury, his coat gleamed like polished copper in the stable's dim light. When she entered his stall, he nickered softly, recognizing her touch as she ran her hands along his injured leg. The damage was severe: torn ligaments, strained tendons, and evidence of bone bruising. But as she conducted her examination, she noticed something that hadn't been apparent before. The swelling had decreased significantly since her last check, and the horse's response to pressure points had improved. "Look at this," she called to Marcus, who had followed her at a distance. "See how he's distributing his weight? There's definite improvement in his stance." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. It doesn't matter. He'll never race again, and I'm not running a retirement home for horses. I've made my decision, Doctor. Either you do it, or I'll find someone who will." Sarah straightened up, meeting Marcus's cold stare. In her years as a veterinarian, she'd faced plenty of difficult decisions, but something about this moment felt different. Thunder's spirit gently nudged her shoulder, his warm breath tickling her neck, and in that instant, she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "No," she said quietly, then louder. "No, I won't do it." Marcus's face reddened. "Excuse me?" "I said no. As Thunder's spirit's attending veterinarian, I cannot in good conscience recommend euthanasia at this time. The horse is showing signs of improvement, and with proper rehabilitation—" "Proper rehabilitation?" Marcus cut her off with a bark of laughter. "Do you have any idea what that costs? Who's going to pay for that, Dr. Mitchell? You?" Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. She knew she was about to do something either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, possibly both. "Yes, actually, I will." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus stared at her as if she'd lost her mind, and maybe she had. But something deep inside told her this was right. "I'll buy him from you," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "You want to cut your losses? Fine. Name your price for a lame horse you're planning to put down anyway." Marcus's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "You can't afford what he's worth." "He's worth nothing to you now," Sarah countered. "You said it yourself. He's eating into your profits. So sell him to me, and you can walk away with something rather than nothing." The stable fell silent, except for the soft sounds of horses in their stalls and the distant rumble of thunder. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. After a few quick taps, he held it up to show her a number, a substantial one, but not impossible. "That's my final offer," he said. "Take it or leave it. But either way, I want this resolved today." Sarah looked at the number, then at Thunder's spirit, who was watching them both with intelligent eyes. The amount would drain her savings, maybe even force her to take out a loan. But looking at the horse's trusting gaze, she knew she couldn't. Let him die just because he was no longer profitable. "Deal," she said, extending her hand. Marcus shook it briefly, his grip too tight, his smile not reaching his eyes. "He's your problem now," he said, already turning away. "I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. Good luck, Doctor. You'll need it." As Marcus's expensive shoes clicked against the concrete floor of the stable, growing fainter until they disappeared entirely, Sarah turned to Thunder's spirit. The horse lowered his head to her level, and she pressed her forehead against his. "Well, boy," she whispered, "I guess we're in this together now." What Sarah didn't know then was that this decision would not only save Thunder's spirit's life, but would also lead to one of the most remarkable recovery stories in veterinary medicine. The journey ahead would test her skills, drain her resources, and challenge everything she thought she knew about healing. But looking into those trusting eyes, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the pure, unshakable certainty that she was doing exactly what she was meant to do. Thunder's spirit nickered softly, as if in agreement, and Sarah smiled despite the weight of what she'd just done. Sometimes the craziest decisions turned out to be the most important ones of our lives. And as the rain continued to fall outside, Sarah began to plan how she would save not just a horse's life, but his spirit as well. The story that unfolded in the months that followed would not only change Sarah's life, but would also revolutionize how the veterinary community approached rehabilitation for severely injured racehorses. But at that moment, standing in the stable, with her new charge, all she knew was that she had taken the first step on an extraordinary journey, one that would test her limits, challenge her beliefs, and ultimately prove that sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The first challenge Sarah faced was finding a suitable place for Thunder's Spirit's rehabilitation. Her small apartment obviously wouldn't work, and the veterinary clinic's facilities weren't designed for long-term care. As she drove home that evening, the weight of her impulsive decision pressed heavily on her shoulders. The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind a crisp, clean scent in the air and a rainbow arching across the darkening sky, a sight that gave her a glimmer of hope. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister, Emma, who owned a small farm just outside of town. "Heard what you did. Mom thinks you're crazy. I think you're brave. Call me." Sarah smiled, remembering how Emma had always been her strongest supporter, even during their childhood, when Sarah would bring home every injured animal she found. She pulled over and dialed her sister's number. "I might have a solution for you," Emma said before Sarah could even speak. "Remember that old stable on the north side of my property? The one Dad used to talk about renovating?" Sarah's heart quickened. Their father, a skilled carpenter who had passed away 2 years ago, had always dreamed of turning that stable into a rehabilitation center for horses. He'd even drawn up plans, which Emma had kept. "It needs work," Emma continued, "but the structure's solid, and I've got those 5 acres of fenced pasture nobody's using. What do you say, sis? Want to make Dad's dream come alive?" Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "Emma, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering. Besides, this isn't just about one horse anymore, is it? This is about proving them all wrong, showing that every life has value, even when others can't see it." That weekend, a small army of volunteers, friends, family, and even some of Sarah's veterinary colleagues who believed in her vision, gathered at Emma's farm. The old stable, which had stood empty for years, gradually transformed under their collective effort. Local contractors, moved by the story, offered their services at reduced rates. A retired horse trainer named Jack Henderson, who had lost his own champion horse to a similar fate years ago, showed up uninvited with his tools and expertise. "The key," Jack explained as he helped install special rubber flooring in Thunder's Spirit's new stall, "is creating an environment where healing feels possible. Horses are intuitive. They know when they're being given a chance." The rehabilitation plan Sarah developed was revolutionary in its approach. Instead of focusing solely on the physical injury, she designed a holistic program that would address both body and spirit. The morning sun would find her at the stable, beginning Thunder's Spirit's Day with gentle exercises and massage therapy. She incorporated hydrotherapy sessions in a small pond on the property, allowing the horse to strengthen his injured leg without bearing full weight. But it wasn't just about physical therapy. Sarah noticed how Thunder's Spirit responded to music. Classical pieces seemed to calm him during treatment sessions. She installed a small speaker system in the stable, creating an atmosphere of peace and healing. Local children, hearing about the injured racehorse, began visiting with their parents, reading stories to Thunder's spirit as he recovered. The horse, once accustomed to the high-pressure environment of racing, began to discover a different kind of life. One particularly challenging morning, when Thunder's spirit seemed reluctant to attempt his exercises, Sarah received an unexpected visit. Dr. James Chen, a renowned equine rehabilitation specialist from California, had read about her case online and flown in to observe. "What you're doing here is unprecedented," Dr. Chen remarked, watching as Sarah worked with Thunder's spirit. "Most people in the industry see horses as investments. You're treating him as a partner in his own recovery." Sarah wiped sweat from her brow, adjusting Thunder's spirit's support bandages. "Because he is a partner. Look at his eyes. He's not ready to give up. Why should we?" Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "I've developed some new techniques for cases like this. Would you be interested in collaborating? What you're building here could change how we approach equine rehabilitation entirely." The collaboration with Dr. Chen opened new doors. Together, they pioneered innovative treatment methods, documenting Thunder's spirit's progress meticulously. Sarah's small stable began attracting attention from veterinary students eager to learn, other horse owners seeking hope, and even skeptics curious about her methods. But it wasn't all success and progress. There were setbacks, days when Thunder's spirit's leg would swell, when pain would make him irritable and resistant to treatment. During one particularly difficult session, the horse reared unexpectedly, nearly injuring Sarah. Instead of backing away, she stood her ground, speaking softly until he calmed. "That's the difference," Jack observed from the sidelines. "Most people would see that as a failure. You see it as communication." The financial strain was constant. Even with Emma's generosity and community support, the costs of Thunder's spirit's care were enormous. Sarah picked up extra shifts at the clinic, sold her car for a more modest model, and learned to live on a tight budget. But every small sign of improvement made it worthwhile. 3 months into the rehabilitation, Sarah arrived at the stable to find Thunder's spirit standing differently. The way he held himself, the distribution of his weight, something had changed. She called Dr. Chen immediately. "Send me the latest scans," he instructed. When he called back an hour later, the excitement in his voice was unmistakable. "Sarah, the bone remodeling is extraordinary. The new treatment protocol is working better than we could have hoped." The news energized everyone involved in Thunder's spirit's recovery. The local media picked up the story, leading to an outpouring of support from the community. A feed company offered to sponsor his nutrition program. A therapeutic equipment manufacturer donated a specialized water treadmill. Sarah's crazy decision was starting to look more like visionary thinking. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came one quiet evening as Sarah sat in Thunder's spirit's stall, updating his treatment logs. The horse, who had been dozing, suddenly lifted his head and took several clear, deliberate steps toward her, the first time he had moved so freely since his injury. "That's it, boy," Sarah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You show them all what you're made of." The transformation wasn't just physical. Thunder's spirit, once known only for his speed on the track, was developing new kinds of relationships. He showed remarkable gentleness with the children who visited, particularly with Sophie, a young girl recovering from her own leg injury who had become a regular visitor. "He understands," Sophie explained to her mother one day, patting Thunder's spirit's nose. He knows what it's like when people think you can't do something anymore. The stable itself had evolved into something more than just a rehabilitation facility. It had become a place of healing for everyone who visited. Other horse owners began bringing their injured animals, drawn by the success stories they were hearing. Sarah found herself at the center of a growing movement advocating for more compassionate approaches to equine rehabilitation. One day, as autumn painted the surrounding trees in brilliant colors, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Marcus Reynolds pulled up in his luxury car, looking somewhat out of place among the modest surroundings. "I heard rumors," he said, surveying the facility with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity, "about what you've accomplished here. I had to see for myself." Sarah led him to where Thunder's spirit was grazing in the pasture. The horse looked up at their approach, his coat gleaming in the sunlight, his movement fluid and strong as he walked toward them. Marcus watched in silence as Thunder's spirit approached Sarah, gently nuzzling her shoulder. The coldness in his eyes softened slightly. "I didn't think this was possible," he admitted quietly. "Most people didn't," Sarah replied. "That's why most people never try." As Marcus turned to leave, he paused. "You know, I have other horses, cases that others might consider hopeless. Would you be interested in?" Sarah smiled. "Bring them. That's what we're here for." That evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Sarah sat on the fence, watching Thunder's spirit in the pasture. Emma joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "Dad would be proud," Emma said softly, "not just of what you've done for Thunder's spirit, but for what you've created here, this place. It's changing how people think about healing." Sarah nodded, thinking about how a single decision, one moment of choosing hope over practicality, had sparked such profound change. Thunder's spirit had not only survived, he had helped create a sanctuary where other animals could find healing, where people could learn about persistence and courage, and where the impossible became possible every day. Winter descended on the rehabilitation center, bringing new challenges and unexpected opportunities. The morning frost painted the pastures in silvery white as Sarah made her early rounds, her breath visible in the crisp air. Thunder's spirit's recovery had plateaued in recent weeks, a common but frustrating phase in rehabilitation that tested both their patience and determination. "Come on, big guy," Sarah encouraged, leading Thunder's spirit to the heated indoor arena they'd managed to construct thanks to growing community support. The space, though modest compared to professional facilities, represented hope for dozens of injured horses that now called the center home. That morning, they had a special visitor, Dr. Rebecca Torres, a pioneering researcher in regenerative medicine from Texas A&M. She'd read about Thunder's spirit's case in a veterinary journal and believed their rehabilitation methods could complement her groundbreaking stem cell research. "What you've achieved here is remarkable," Dr. Torres observed, watching Thunder's spirit move through his exercises. "But imagine combining your rehabilitation techniques with cutting-edge cellular therapy. We could revolutionize equine medicine." Sarah's heart raced at the possibilities. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A clinical trial, Thunder's Spirit, would be our first candidate. The treatment could accelerate healing in ways we've only dreamed of, but Dr. Torres hesitated. It's experimental. There are risks. Before Sarah could respond, a commotion outside caught their attention. A horse trailer had pulled up, and a frantic woman was calling for help. Sarah rushed out to find a young Arabian mare in distress, her leg badly injured from a jumping accident. "Everyone said to put her down," the owner, Claire, explained through tears. "But then I heard about Thunder's spirit, about what you've done here. Please, she's my whole world." As Sarah examined the mare, named Luna, she saw the same fighting spirit she'd recognized in Thunder's spirit months ago. "We'll help her," Sarah promised, already formulating a treatment plan. "But I need you to understand, this is a journey, not a quick fix. Are you ready for that?" Claire nodded firmly. "Whatever it takes." This scene played out increasingly, often at the rehabilitation center. Word had spread, and desperate owners brought their injured horses from across the country. Each case presented unique challenges, but they also provided opportunities to refine and improve their methods. Late one evening, as Sarah reviewed patient files in the office she'd set up in the converted hayloft, Emma brought her dinner and news that would change everything. "The State Racing Commission called," Emma announced, setting down a plate of homemade lasagna. "They're investigating treatment protocols for injured racehorses. Apparently, someone showed them our success rates." Sarah looked up from her papers. "What does that mean for us?" "They want to make our facility a model for new industry standards. But that's not all." Emma paused, grinning. "Remember that grant we applied for? The one for expanding innovative veterinary practices?" Sarah's eyes widened. "We got it. $5 million, Emma confirmed. "They want us to establish a training program for other veterinarians. You're not just saving horses anymore, sis. You're changing the whole system." The grant money opened new possibilities, but it also brought increased scrutiny and responsibility. Sarah knew they needed to proceed carefully, maintaining their commitment to individualized care while scaling up their operations. The decision about Dr. Torres's stem cell trial weighed heavily on Sarah's mind. After careful consideration and consultation with her team, she agreed to participate, with Thunder's spirit as the flagship patient. The procedure itself was relatively simple, but the implications were enormous. Weeks passed, and the results exceeded everyone's expectations. Thunder's spirit's recovery accelerated dramatically, and the combined approach of innovative medical treatment with their holistic rehabilitation methods proved more effective than either approach alone. But it wasn't just about the medical success. The rehabilitation center had evolved into something far more significant, a place of healing for humans as well as horses. Sarah noticed how Claire, who visited Luna daily, gradually emerged from her shell of anxiety and depression. Other owners formed support groups, sharing their stories and helping newcomers navigate the emotional journey of rehabilitation. One snowy morning, Sarah arrived to find Jack, their retired horse trainer, teaching a group of veterinary students about behavioral cues in recovering horses. Thunder's spirit stood patiently as Jack explained how to read subtle signs of discomfort or improvement. "It's not just about the physical healing," Jack emphasized. "These horses need to believe in themselves again. They need to know someone believes in them." The students scribbled notes eagerly, but Sarah's attention was drawn to Thunder's spirit's eyes. There was wisdom there now, a quiet strength that hadn't existed during his racing days. He'd become more than a patient. He was a teacher, helping others understand the profound connection between physical and emotional healing. The center's success attracted media attention, leading to a documentary crew arriving to film their work. Initially hesitant about the disruption, Sarah realized the importance of sharing their story with a wider audience. During filming, they captured an extraordinary moment. Sophie, the young girl who had been visiting throughout her own recovery, took her first steps without crutches alongside Thunder's Spirit. The horse matched his pace to hers, offering silent encouragement as she gradually made her way across the arena. "He taught me that healing takes time," Sophie told the camera, her face glowing with achievement. "And that's okay. The important thing is not giving up." The documentary also caught the attention of Marcus Reynolds, who had become an unexpected ally. After witnessing the transformation in Thunder's Spirit and other horses at the center, he'd begun advocating for change within the racing industry. "I was wrong," he admitted during an interview. "I saw these animals as investments, not as the remarkable beings they are. What Dr. Mitchell has created here isn't just about saving horses, it's about rediscovering our humanity." As winter began to thaw into spring, Sarah received news that would bring their journey full circle. The veterinary board was reviewing their rehabilitation protocols for industry-wide implementation. Their methods would become the new standard of care, ensuring that other horses would have the same chance at recovery that Thunder's Spirit had received. But perhaps the most meaningful validation came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Chen, who had helped them in the early days, brought a group of international veterinary specialists to observe their work. "What you've built here," he told Sarah, as they watched Thunder's Spirit lead a younger horse through confidence-building exercises, "is more than a rehabilitation center. It's a revolution in how we think about healing. You've proven that recovery isn't just about medical treatment. It's about creating an environment where the impossible becomes possible." Sarah smiled, watching as Thunder's Spirit moved with fluid grace across the arena. His injury, once thought career-ending, had led to something far more valuable than racing victories. He had become a symbol of resilience, a teacher of patience, and a beacon of hope for others facing similar challenges. That evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Sarah stood in Thunder's Spirit's stall, reflecting on their journey. The horse gently nudged her shoulder, his way of asking for attention. She stroked his neck, feeling the strong muscles that had rebuilt themselves through months of patient work. "You know what, boy?" she whispered. "Sometimes the biggest setbacks in life lead us exactly where we need to be. We just have to be brave enough to take that first step into the unknown." Thunder's Spirit nickered softly in response, and Sarah could swear he understood. Their story had become more than just a tale of physical recovery. It was a testament to the power of believing in something greater than ourselves, of fighting for what's right even when others say it's impossible. Spring brought an unexpected visitor to the rehabilitation center, a young veterinary student named Maya Chen, Dr. James Chen's daughter. Fresh out of her third year at Cornell's veterinary school, Maya arrived with innovative ideas and a burning desire to learn. Her presence would catalyze a new chapter in their evolving story. "I've been following your research," Maya told Sarah one morning as they prepared for rounds. "But there's something I've been wondering. What if we could prevent these injuries before they happen?" The question sparked a series of brainstorming sessions that would revolutionize their approach. Maya had developed a sophisticated monitoring system using wearable technology that could detect subtle changes in a horse's gait and muscle tension, potentially identifying problems before they became severe injuries. Thunder's Spirit became the first test subject for Maya's monitoring system. The data they collected proved invaluable, showing patterns that even experienced veterinarians might miss. But more importantly, it led to a breakthrough in understanding how horses compensate for weakness and pain. "Look at this," Maya pointed to a graph on her tablet. "See how the pressure distribution changes when he's tired? We could use this to develop better training programs, not just for rehabilitation, but for active racehorses too." Sarah saw the potential immediately. Prevention could save countless horses from the trauma Thunder's Spirit had endured. They began incorporating Maya's monitoring system into their daily routines, fine-tuning it based on real-world observations. The center's reputation continued to grow, attracting attention from unexpected quarters. One morning, a sleek helicopter landed in the adjacent field, bringing Alexandra Blackwood, CEO of one of the largest equestrian sports companies in the world. "I'll be direct, Dr. Mitchell," Alexandra said as they walked the grounds. "What you've created here could transform the entire industry. We want to help you scale this model globally." The offer was tempting: substantial funding, international reach, state-of-the-art equipment. But Sarah had concerns about maintaining their principles of individualized care and emotional healing in a corporate structure. "Before you decide," Alexandra continued, sensing Sarah's hesitation, "there's someone I'd like you to meet." She led Sarah to the helicopter, where a teenage girl waited in a wheelchair. "This is my daughter, Lily. She was a promising equestrian before an accident left her paralyzed. The doctors said she'd never ride again." Lily wheeled herself forward, her eyes bright with determination. "But they were wrong. I've been following Thunder's Spirit's story, Dr. Mitchell. If he could overcome his challenges, why can't I?" This encounter led to another evolution in the center's mission. Working with physical therapists and adaptive sports specialists, they began developing programs for riders with disabilities. Thunder's Spirit, with his patient nature and steady gait, proved to be an exceptional therapy horse. The first time, Lily sat on Thunder's Spirit, supported by specially designed equipment and trained handlers. Tears streamed down her face. "I can feel it," she whispered. "The freedom. I'd forgotten what it felt like." Alexandra's company did become a partner, but on terms that preserved the center's integrity. They established a foundation to fund similar rehabilitation centers worldwide, with Sarah's facility serving as the training hub. Maya's monitoring system played a crucial role in this expansion. By gathering data from hundreds of horses across different facilities, they could refine their understanding of equine biomechanics and healing patterns. The research caught the attention of the Olympic Equestrian Committee, leading to new safety protocols for competition horses. On a particularly memorable day, they received a group of visitors from a children's hospital, young patients facing their own battles with injury and illness. Among them was a boy named Charlie, who hadn't spoken since a traumatic accident 6 months earlier. As Thunder's Spirit approached the group, he seemed to pay special attention to Charlie, gently lowering his head to the boy's eye level. To everyone's amazement, Charlie reached out and touched the horse's nose. "You got better," he whispered, breaking his silence. "Maybe I can too." The moment crystallized what Sarah had always believed. that healing was about more than physical recovery. It was about restoring hope, rebuilding confidence, and finding strength in unexpected places. The center's success drew attention from the academic world as well. Universities began sending students for internships, and Sarah found herself giving guest lectures at veterinary schools. But she never lost sight of their core mission. One morning, as she watched Thunder's spirit work with a newly arrived injured horse, she noticed something remarkable. The younger horse, initially frightened and resistant to treatment, began mirroring Thunder's spirit's calm demeanor. "He's teaching them," Jack observed, standing beside her. "Shows them it's okay to trust again, to believe in healing." This observation led to another innovation, using recovered horses as mentors for new arrivals. The approach proved remarkably effective, reducing stress and accelerating rehabilitation for nervous or traumatized horses. The center's influence continued to grow. Racing stables began implementing their preventive care protocols. Insurance companies offered better terms to facilities that adopted their methods. Even skeptics in the traditional veterinary community couldn't ignore the mounting evidence of their success. But perhaps the most significant impact was on the individuals who came through their doors. Claire, who had brought Luna months ago, now worked as a rehabilitation specialist, helping other owners through their journeys. Sophie volunteered regularly, sharing her story with new patients and their families. Maya's presence had sparked other changes too. She developed a training program for veterinary students, combining traditional medical knowledge with their holistic approach to healing. The program became so popular that they had to create a waiting list. One evening, as Sarah completed her rounds, she found Maya sitting in Thunder's spirit's stall, working on her research data. The horse stood nearby, occasionally peering at her tablet screen, as if offering his own input. "You know what I've realized," Maya said, looking up. "We're not just collecting data on physical healing. We're documenting the power of second chances." Sarah nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Every success story at the center was a testament to what could happen when someone refused to give up, when innovation met compassion, and when healing was viewed as a holistic journey rather than just a medical process. The next morning brought news that would validate their approach in an unexpected way. The State Racing Commission had completed its review of their methods, and the results were clear. Facilities that adopted their protocols showed significantly lower injury rates and better outcomes for injured horses. But the real victory wasn't in the statistics or accolades. It was in moments like watching Lily guide Thunder's spirit through a simple dressage pattern, her wheelchair forgotten at the arena's edge. It was in Charlie's weekly visits, where his voice grew stronger as he read stories to the recovering horses. It was in the quiet triumph of each small step forward, each barrier overcome. As Sarah watched the sun rise over the center she'd created, she realized that Thunder's spirit's legacy would live on, not just in the medical protocols they'd developed or the lives they'd changed, but in the fundamental shift in how people viewed healing as a journey that required not just medical expertise, but also heart, hope, and the courage to believe in possibilities. The evening brought another remarkable moment. A group of visiting international veterinarians watched in awe as Thunder's spirit demonstrated their rehabilitation techniques with a new patient. His movements were confident and graceful, showing no trace of the injury that had once threatened his life. "This," Sarah told the observers, "is what happens when we dare to challenge the impossible." When we choose hope over convenience and healing over profit, this is what becomes possible when we believe. A groundbreaking opportunity presented itself one crisp autumn morning when Dr. Elizabeth Foster, head of the International Equine Research Foundation, arrived at the rehabilitation center. Her visit wasn't just routine observation. She carried a proposal that would challenge everything they'd built. "We want to establish a global network of rehabilitation centers," Dr. Foster announced during a meeting with Sarah and her team. "But more than that, we want to create a revolutionary training program that combines veterinary medicine with therapeutic horsemanship. Your facility would be the cornerstone." The proposal came with substantial funding and resources, but it also presented a unique challenge. They would need to develop a comprehensive curriculum that could be taught worldwide while maintaining the individualized approach that made their program successful. Sarah gathered her core team, Maya, Jack, and several other specialists, who had joined them over the months. Together, they began mapping out what would become known as the Spirit Protocol, named in honor of Thunder's Spirit's pioneering case. As they worked, a new patient arrived that would test their evolving methodology. A striking black stallion named Midnight Storm was brought in, suffering from severe trauma after a trailer accident. The horse's physical injuries were significant, but it was his psychological state that posed the greatest challenge. "He's completely shut down," Maya observed during their initial assessment. "It's like he's lost his will to live." This case prompted them to develop new approaches to emotional rehabilitation. Thunder's Spirit, who had become remarkably intuitive in his interactions with other horses, played a crucial role. They placed Midnight Storm in an adjacent paddock, allowing the horses to interact at their own pace. The transformation was subtle. At first, a flicker of interest in Midnight Storm's eyes, a slight turn of his head when Thunder's Spirit approached the fence. But gradually, something remarkable began to happen. The traumatized horse started mimicking Thunder's Spirit's calm demeanor, his confidence slowly rebuilding through this unique form of peer therapy. Their work with Midnight Storm caught the attention of Dr. James Werner, a leading expert in equine psychology from Vienna. "What you're doing here goes beyond physical rehabilitation," he noted during a visit. "You're actually rebuilding these animals' sense of self." The success with Midnight Storm led to another innovation in their program. They began incorporating specific personality matches between recovering horses and their therapy partners, creating what they called emotional mentorship pairs. Meanwhile, Lily Blackwood's progress had inspired a new dimension to their work. The teenager had not only regained her confidence through therapeutic riding, but had also developed a unique bond with Thunder's Spirit that transcended her physical limitations. "It's not about what you can't do," Lily explained to a group of young riders with disabilities. "It's about discovering what you can do differently." Her words resonated deeply with everyone at the center. They began expanding their adaptive riding program, developing new techniques and equipment that allowed riders of all abilities to experience the healing power of horses. The center's reputation continued to grow, but with success came new challenges. One morning, Sarah received a call that would test their resources and resolve. A devastating fire at a racing stable in Kentucky had left several valuable horses injured and traumatized. Could they help? The decision to accept multiple emergency cases at once was risky, but Sarah knew they couldn't refuse. Within hours, their facility was transformed into an emergency treatment center. Thunder's spirit, sensing the urgency, seemed to step naturally into a leadership role, his calm presence helping to settle the nervous newcomers. During this crisis, they discovered something unexpected. The pressure of handling multiple trauma cases simultaneously led to innovations in their treatment protocols. Maya's monitoring system proved invaluable in tracking multiple patients' progress, and their emotional mentorship program showed remarkable results in helping the traumatized horses recover. The experience also revealed the strength of their team. Staff members worked tirelessly, supporting each other through exhausting shifts. Local volunteers arrived with supplies and assistance. Even some of their former patients' owners returned to help, creating a powerful demonstration of community resilience. As the emergency cases began to stabilize, Dr. Foster returned with news that would transform their impact even further. The foundation had secured partnerships with veterinary schools across 5 continents. They wanted to establish a fellowship program, bringing promising veterinary students to learn their methods firsthand. The first group of fellows arrived in the spring. 12 talented young veterinarians from different countries, each bringing unique perspectives and experiences. Among them was Dr. Amara Okafor from Nigeria, whose insights into traditional healing practices would add another dimension to their program. In my culture, Amara explained during a team meeting, we believe that healing is not just about the body. It's about restoring balance to the whole being, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Her philosophy aligned perfectly with their approach, and soon they began incorporating elements of traditional healing wisdom from various cultures into their protocol. This multicultural perspective enhanced their understanding of holistic healing and broadened their impact globally. The center's work had begun to influence other fields beyond veterinary medicine. Psychologists studied their emotional mentorship program for insights into trauma recovery. Physical therapists adapted their rehabilitation techniques for human patients. Even business schools took interest in their model of sustainable, ethical healthcare. One day, as Sarah watched Thunder's spirit working with a group of therapy students, she realized how far they'd come from that rainy morning when she defied convention to save one horse's life. That decision had sparked a movement that was changing lives across the globe, but perhaps the most powerful validation came from an unexpected source. Marcus Reynolds, the former owner who had wanted to euthanize Thunder's spirit, arrived unannounced one afternoon. He stood silently watching the horse guide a young rider through a confidence-building exercise. "I was wrong," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "I thought I knew the value of a horse, calculated it in dollars and wins. But what you've created here, this is priceless." Sarah invited him to join a session where Thunder's spirit was working with a newly arrived injured horse. Marcus watched in amazement as the once defeated racehorse demonstrated patience and wisdom in helping another animal heal. "You didn't just save his life," Marcus observed. "You gave him purpose. That's something money can't buy." The center continued to evolve, each success building on the last. They developed new techniques for pain management, pioneered innovative physical therapy methods, and expanded their understanding of equine psychology. But at its heart, the program remained true to its founding principle, that every life has value beyond its immediate utility. As autumn returned and the leaves began to turn, Sarah found herself reflecting on their journey while watching Thunder's spirit in the pasture. The horse that had once faced death now moved with the grace and confidence of a natural healer, his presence bringing hope to countless others. A gentle nudge at her shoulder drew her attention. It was Midnight Storm, now fully recovered and serving as a mentor to other traumatized horses. Behind him, Lily sat tall in her specially adapted saddle, leading a group of young riders through their therapy session. The scene before her embodied everything they'd worked to achieve. Healing that transcended physical recovery, courage that inspired others to persevere, and wisdom that came from overcoming adversity. Their story had become a testament to the power of believing in possibilities, even when others could only see limitations. In the distance, new construction marked the beginning of their latest project, an international training center that would allow them to share their methods with even more people. But as Sarah watched Thunder's spirit guide another injured horse through its first steps of rehabilitation, she knew that their greatest achievement wasn't in the buildings or programs they'd created. It was in the spirit of hope they'd nurtured, the lives they'd touched, and the proof that sometimes the most powerful healing comes from simply believing in the potential that others might miss. Winter brought an unexpected opportunity that would test everything the rehabilitation center had achieved. The Olympics Committee, impressed by their groundbreaking work, approached Sarah with an unprecedented request. They wanted Thunder's spirit to participate in a special demonstration during the upcoming Summer Games opening ceremony. It's not just about showcasing his recovery, the committee representative explained. We want to tell a story of transformation that will inspire millions. The invitation sparked intense debate among the staff. While it would be an incredible platform to spread their message, Sarah worried about subjecting Thunder's spirit to the pressure of such a massive event. The horse had found his purpose in healing others. Was it right to return him to the spotlight? The decision became clearer after a remarkable incident with their newest patient. A young Mustang named Wild Heart had been rescued from a devastating wildfire that swept through Nevada. The horse bore both physical and emotional scars, showing extreme anxiety around humans. One morning, as Sarah struggled to approach Wild, Heart Thunder's spirit did something extraordinary. He calmly walked to the fence, separating their paddocks, and began a series of gentle movements, almost like a dance. The Mustang, initially tense, gradually began mirroring Thunder's spirit's motions. He's teaching healing through movement, Meyer observed, filming the interaction for their research. This could revolutionize how we approach trauma recovery. The Olympic Committee's vision suddenly made sense. Thunder's spirit's performance could demonstrate this healing dance on a global stage, showing the world that recovery wasn't just about returning to what was, but discovering what could be. The preparation for the Olympics brought new energy to the center. They developed a choreography that incorporated elements of their therapy programs, working with dancers and movement specialists to create something truly unique. During this time, they received a visit from Dr. Isabella Martinez, a renowned expert in equine-assisted therapy from Argentina. She watched Thunder's spirit work with various patients, including Wild Heart, who was making remarkable progress. What you've discovered here, Dr. Martinez noted, is a universal language of healing. These movements, these interactions, they transcend species. They speak directly to the spirit. Her observation led to another breakthrough in their program. They began incorporating dance and movement therapy into their rehabilitation protocols, not just for the horses, but for human patients as well. The results were extraordinary. Charlie, the once silent boy, joined a group of children learning these healing movements alongside the horses. His mother watched in tears as he began expressing himself through motion, his body telling stories. His voice had been unable to share. The Olympic preparation also attracted media attention, bringing unexpected allies. A tech company offered to create a virtual reality experience that would allow people worldwide to ride alongside Thunder's spirit, experiencing his journey from injury to healing. Lily Blackwood, now a confident young woman, became an integral part of the project. Her own story of recovery paralleled Thunder's spirits in many ways, and she helped design adaptive versions of the VR experience for users with disabilities. "Everyone deserves to feel this freedom," she explained during a demonstration. "Sometimes we just need to find a different path to get there." As winter melted into spring, the center hosted a special event, a healing arts festival that brought together various forms of therapy: equine, dance, music, and art. Thunder's spirit and wild heart performed their healing dance for the first time in public, moving in perfect synchronization. The festival attracted unexpected guests, including several professional athletes recovering from career-threatening injuries. Among them was Marcus Thompson, a basketball star who'd been told he'd never play again after a devastating accident. "Watching these horses," Marcus said after participating in a therapy session, "I'm learning that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about discovering new strengths you never knew you had." His words resonated deeply with everyone at the center. They began developing specialized programs for athletes, combining their equine therapy methods with sports rehabilitation techniques. The approach caught the attention of sports medicine specialists worldwide. Dr. Jonathan Kim, head of sports medicine at a major university, arranged to conduct a research study at the center. "What you're doing here could change how we approach athletic recovery entirely," he explained. "It's not just about physical rehabilitation. It's about restoring the athlete's spirit." As the Olympics drew closer, Sarah noticed something remarkable about Thunder's spirit. During rehearsals for the opening ceremony, he seemed to understand the importance of his role. His movements became more deliberate, more expressive, as if he knew he was carrying a message of hope. One evening, as they finished practice, a group of local children with special needs visited the center. Thunder's spirit, despite being tired, from rehearsal approached them with gentle interest. What happened next moved everyone to tears. The horse began performing elements of his Olympic routine, but adapted to the children's level. He moved slower, gentler, inviting them to join in their own way. Each child, regardless of their limitations, found a way to participate in this impromptu dance of healing. This is what the Olympics should see, Sarah realized. Not just a performance, but a demonstration of true inclusion. They modified their Olympic program to include elements of adaptive movement, showing how healing could be accessible to everyone. The revised choreography told a story, not just of recovery, but of transformation and inclusion. The impact of their work continued to ripple outward. Veterans groups began sending PTSD survivors for therapy. Schools developed programs based on their movement-based healing approach. Healthcare providers studied their methods for applications in human rehabilitation. As spring progressed, Wildheart's transformation became a powerful testament to their methods. The once traumatized Mustang now helped other rescued horses adapt to their new lives, showing the same patience and wisdom he had learned from Thunder's spirit. During a final rehearsal before departing for the Olympics, something magical happened. As Thunder's spirit performed his routine, Wildheart began moving in perfect harmony from his paddock. Other horses joined in, creating a spontaneous chorus of healing movement. "This is it," Sarah whispered to Maya, who was recording the moment. "This is what we've been trying to show the world. Healing isn't just an individual journey. It's something we do together." The evening before they left for the Olympics, the center hosted a candlelight ceremony. Staff, patients, and supporters gathered to celebrate not just Thunder's spirit's upcoming performance, but the countless lives touched by their work. Dr. Foster, who had supported them from the beginning, spoke to the gathered crowd. What began as one veterinarian's refusal to give up on a single horse has grown into a movement that's changing how we think about healing. But more importantly, it's showing us that every life has the potential to inspire others. As the stars emerged above the quiet facility, Sarah stood with Thunder's spirit in his favorite pasture. Tomorrow, they would leave for the biggest stage in the world, but tonight was about remembering where they came from. "You've shown us all what's possible," she told him softly, stroking his neck. "Now it's time to share that message with the world." The Olympic Stadium buzzed with anticipation as thousands of spectators filled the seats. Behind the scenes, Sarah and her team made final preparations for Thunder's spirit's historic performance. The energy was electric, but there was also an underlying sense of purpose that transcended mere spectacle. "Remember," Sarah told her team as they gathered in the preparation area, "we're not just here to perform. We're here to show the world a new way of thinking about healing." Thunder's spirit stood calmly amid the chaos of final preparations, his coat gleaming under the stadium lights. Years of rehabilitation work had transformed him from a broken racehorse into something extraordinary, a symbol of resilience and hope. The moment arrived. As the stadium lights dimmed, a single spotlight illuminated Thunder's spirit and Sarah at the entrance to the arena. The crowd fell silent, waiting. Then something unexpected happened. From the opposite end of the stadium, a group of children with various disabilities entered, led by Lily in her wheelchair. This wasn't part of the original program. It was a surprise addition that Sarah and her team had planned to demonstrate the true meaning of their work. The music began, a haunting melody that built slowly. Thunder's spirit moved forward, with grace that belied his former injury, while the children took their positions around the arena. Each child carried a lantern, creating points of light in the darkness. What unfolded wasn't just a performance. It was a story told through movement. Thunder's spirit and the children moved in harmony, their choreography demonstrating how healing transcends physical limitations. The horse adapted his movements to match each child's abilities, creating a dance that celebrated diversity and resilience. Halfway through the performance, Wildheart appeared, released from the shadows. The once traumatized Mustang moved in, perfect synchronization with Thunder's spirit, their dual performance symbolizing the journey from trauma to triumph. The stadium was completely silent except for the music and the soft sound of hooves. In the stands, cameras flashed and phones recorded, but the audience seemed to understand they were witnessing something more than just a show. As the performance reached its climax, something magical happened. Thunder's spirit began a series of movements that mirrored his own rehabilitation journey. From tentative first steps to confident strides, the children joined in, each moving in their own way, creating a powerful image of inclusive healing. The final moment brought tears to many eyes. Thunder's spirit approached each child in turn, bowing gently, before returning to the center of the arena. The lights dimmed except for the children's lanterns, creating a constellation of hope around the horse who had started it all. The applause was deafening, but it wasn't just appreciation for a performance. It was recognition of a deeper truth, that healing comes in many forms and every life has the potential for transformation. After the ceremony, the impact was immediate. Social media exploded with videos and images of the performance. News outlets clamored for interviews. But more importantly, hospitals and rehabilitation centers worldwide began reaching out, eager to learn more about their methods. Dr. Foster met them backstage, her eyes shining. "This changes everything," she said. "You've just shown the world that rehabilitation isn't about returning to what was. It's about discovering what can be." The following days brought a whirlwind of opportunities. The Olympic Committee invited them to establish permanent programs at major sporting facilities. Healthcare providers sought partnerships. Educational institutions requested curriculum development. But perhaps the most significant impact came from unexpected quarters. A group of international aid organizations approached them about adapting their methods for disaster recovery and trauma rehabilitation in conflict zones. "Your approach to healing transcends language and culture," explained Dr. Amira Hassan, a trauma specialist from UNICEF. "We believe it could help communities recovering from crisis." This new challenge led to another evolution in their work. They began developing programs that could be implemented with limited resources, focusing on the core principles of their healing approach rather than specific equipment or facilities. Maya's monitoring technology proved invaluable in this effort. She adapted it to work with basic smartphones, making it accessible to rehabilitation workers worldwide. The data gathered would help refine their methods and demonstrate their effectiveness across different contexts. Back at the center, the Olympic performance had another unexpected effect. Wildheart, inspired by his experience in the stadium, began showing new capabilities in working with traumatized animals. He seemed to have a particular gift for helping newly rescued horses overcome their fear of humans. "It's like he remembers his own journey," Jack observed, watching Wildheart guide a nervous newcomer through their first interaction. "He knows exactly what they need to feel safe." This observation led to a new dimension in their program, training recovered animals to become healing partners. The results were remarkable. Animals that had overcome trauma proved exceptionally skilled at helping others through similar challenges. Sarah also noticed changes in Thunder's spirit after the Olympics. The horse seemed to carry himself with new purpose, as if understanding his role as a pioneer in their healing movement. During therapy sessions, he showed an almost uncanny ability to adapt his approach to each individual's needs. One morning, as they worked with a group of veterans dealing with PTSD, Thunder's spirit demonstrated this gift dramatically. A participant named Mike, who had been struggling to connect with the program, was having a particularly difficult day. Instead of following the planned exercises, Thunder's spirit simply stood quietly beside Mike, offering silent companionship. Gradually, the veteran began to talk, first to the horse, then to his therapist, finally opening up about experiences he'd never shared before. "How did he know?" Mike asked later. "How did he know that's what I needed?" The answer, Sarah realized, lay in their fundamental approach to healing. It wasn't about following a prescribed path. It was about creating space for each individual to find their own way forward. This philosophy became the cornerstone of their expanding program. As they developed training materials for other facilities, they emphasized the importance of listening to both animals and humans, of allowing healing to unfold naturally rather than forcing it into predetermined patterns. The Olympic performance had opened doors, but it was their continued innovation and dedication to individual healing that built lasting change. They began hosting international symposiums, bringing together experts from various fields to explore new frontiers in rehabilitation. During one such gathering, a neuroscientist presented research showing how their movement-based therapy activated neural pathways associated with healing and emotional regulation. A behavioral psychologist demonstrated how the human-animal bond created in their programs facilitated deeper therapeutic breakthroughs. As their influence grew, Sarah remained focused on the individual stories of transformation that gave their work meaning. She never tired of watching first interactions between injured animals and their potential healing partners, of seeing the moment when hope rekindled in eyes that had grown dim with pain or fear. One evening, as the sun set over the center, Sarah found Thunder's Spirit and Wildheart standing together in their favorite pasture. The two horses, once broken by circumstance, now stood as testaments to the power of resilience and the importance of believing in possibilities. A group of new patients watched from the fence, humans and animals alike, each carrying their own wounds, each seeking their own path to healing. But thanks to the journey that had begun with one veterinarian's refusal to give up on a single horse, they wouldn't have to walk that path alone. The legacy of their Olympic moment continued to grow, not through fame or recognition, but through the countless lives touched by their approach to healing. Every day brought new stories of transformation, new evidence that when given the chance, both humans and animals had an extraordinary capacity for renewal and growth. The dawn broke over the rehabilitation center with an unusual buzz of activity. A fleet of news vans had assembled outside the gates, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like mechanical flowers. Inside, Sarah and her team were preparing for an unprecedented event, the first Global Healing Summit, bringing together experts from various fields to explore the intersection of animal and human rehabilitation. But this morning held another significance. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before, a simultaneous rehabilitation session connecting centers across 5 continents through virtual reality technology. At the heart of this groundbreaking experiment would be Thunder's Spirit and Wildheart, their movements and healing energy to be transmitted to thousands of patients worldwide. "This is either brilliant or crazy," Maya muttered, adjusting the sophisticated sensors attached to Thunder's Spirit. The horse stood patiently, seemingly understanding the gravity of the moment. The technology they'd developed had come a long way. Maya's monitoring system had evolved into a complex network that could track and transmit subtle changes in movement, heart rate, and even emotional states. Participants at centers worldwide would wear haptic feedback suits that would allow them to feel the horse's movements and energy. Maybe it's both, Sarah replied, checking the final connections. But sometimes the craziest ideas lead to the biggest breakthroughs. The summit had drawn an extraordinary mix of participants. Traditional healers from indigenous communities shared space with cutting-edge neuroscientists. Veterinarians discussed techniques with dance therapists. Physical rehabilitation specialists compared notes with meditation experts. Dr. Chen, who had supported their work from the beginning, opened the proceedings with a powerful statement. We stand at the threshold of a new understanding of healing, not as something we do to patients, but as something we discover together. As the virtual reality session began, something remarkable unfolded. Thunder's spirit and Wild Heart moved in perfect synchronization, their healing dance more refined than ever. Through the VR technology, participants worldwide could experience the subtle nuances of their movements, the rhythm of their breathing, the steady beat of their hearts. In a rehabilitation center in Tokyo, a stroke patient who hadn't walked in months found herself swaying to the horse's rhythm. In Cape Town, a group of trauma survivors reported feeling a profound sense of peace and connection. In São Paulo, children with autism engaged with the virtual horses in ways that amazed their therapists. But the most extraordinary moment came from an unexpected quarter. In a small village in Kenya, where a local healing center had been equipped with their basic technology, an elderly traditional healer watched the horses through VR goggles. After a few minutes, she began to sing, a deep, rhythmic chant that somehow matched perfectly with the horses' movements. The sound was picked up by their global network and transmitted to all participating centers. Something magical happened as the ancient healing song merged with the horse's modern dance of recovery. Patients and therapists worldwide reported feeling a powerful surge of energy, a connection that transcended language and culture. "This is incredible," Maya whispered, monitoring the data flowing across her screens. "The synchronization patterns we're seeing. It's like the horses are conducting a global orchestra of healing." The success of this event sparked a new phase in their work. They began collaborating with indigenous healers worldwide, incorporating traditional wisdom into their modern therapeutic approaches. The combination proved powerful, leading to breakthroughs in understanding how different cultures approached healing and recovery. One particularly moving case involved a young girl named Zara from Syria, a refugee who had stopped speaking after experiencing trauma in her war-torn homeland. Through the virtual reality program, she connected with Thunder's spirit from a rehabilitation center in Lebanon. During their sessions, she began to hum along with the healing songs, and gradually her voice returned. The summit also brought unexpected challenges that led to innovation. When a power outage threatened to disconnect several participating centers, they quickly adapted their methods to work with minimal technology. This led to the development of their core principles approach, techniques that could be applied effectively even with limited resources. During a break in the proceedings, Sarah found herself in conversation with a quantum physicist who had been observing their work. "What you've created here," he said, "goes beyond traditional therapy. You're tapping into something fundamental about how energy and healing move through living systems." This observation led to a new research direction. They began studying how the horse's healing presence affected the quantum field around them, measuring subtle energy changes during therapy sessions. The results suggested something remarkable. The horses were actually creating coherent energy, fields that promoted healing. The summit's impact continued to ripple outward. Healthcare providers began incorporating elements of their approach into traditional medical settings. Schools developed programs based on their principles of movement and connection. Even corporate wellness programs started adopting their methods for stress reduction and team building. But perhaps the most significant development came from an unexpected source. A group of artificial intelligence researchers approached them with an intriguing proposal. They wanted to study the horse's decision-making processes during therapy sessions, believing that understanding how they adapted to each patient could help develop more empathetic AI systems. This collaboration led to fascinating insights. The AI team discovered patterns in how Thunder's spirit and wild heart adjusted their behavior for different patients, subtle changes in movement, rhythm, and energy that demonstrated remarkable emotional intelligence. They're not just responding to physical cues, the lead researcher explained. They're reading and responding to emotional states in ways we're only beginning to understand. As the summit drew to a close, participants gathered for a final demonstration. Thunder's spirit and wild heart, accompanied by the global chorus of healing songs that had emerged during their virtual sessions, performed a new kind of therapy dance. This one incorporated elements from every culture that had contributed to their growing understanding of healing. The performance was streamed live to rehabilitation centers worldwide. Patients and therapists joined in from their locations, creating a global wave of healing movement that circled the planet. For those few minutes, thousands of people worldwide moved as one, connected by the horse's rhythm and the ancient songs of healing. In the aftermath of the summit, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come from that rainy day when she'd refused to give up on one injured horse. Their work had evolved into something far beyond what she'd imagined, a global movement that combined the best of modern science with ancient wisdom, technology with tradition, physical healing with spiritual growth. But even as their influence grew, she remained focused on the individual moments of transformation that gave their work meaning. Like the veteran who finally slept through the night after a session with wild heart, or the child with cerebral palsy who found new ways to express herself through their movement therapy, or the elderly patient who regained their will to live through virtual connections with the horses. That evening, as the last of the summit participants departed, Sarah found Thunder's spirit and wild heart in their favorite pasture. The horses stood quietly together, their presence emanating a peace that needed no technology to translate. A soft breeze carried the distant echo of healing songs, and Sarah smiled, knowing that somewhere in the world someone was beginning their own journey of recovery, guided by the wisdom of these remarkable horses who had turned their own trauma into a gift for others. The summit had opened new doors, but Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Every day brought new possibilities for healing, new ways of connecting, new hope for those who thought hope was lost. And at the heart of it all remained the simple truth that had started their journey, that sometimes the greatest healing comes from believing in possibilities that others might miss. A breakthrough discovery one morning shifted the entire landscape of their work. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a pioneering geneticist, arrived at the center with intriguing research about Thunder's spirit's DNA. Her findings suggested something extraordinary. The horse's genetic response to injury and subsequent healing had triggered unique adaptations that could revolutionize regenerative medicine. It's not just about physical recovery, Dr. Rodriguez explained, spreading complex charts across Sarah's desk. His genetic profile shows unprecedented neural plasticity and cellular regeneration patterns. He's literally rewritten his own genetic expression through the healing process. This revelation opened an entirely new frontier in their research. Working with Dr. Rodriguez's team, they began studying how Thunder Spirit's rehabilitation methods had influenced his genetic makeup. The implications were staggering. If they could understand the mechanism behind this adaptation, it could transform treatment approaches for both animals and humans. Maya immediately saw the potential to enhance their technology. She developed new sensors that could track genetic changes in real time during therapy sessions, adding another layer to their understanding of the healing process. "Look at this," she called out during one session, pointing to her screen. "When Thunder's spirit works with injured animals, we're seeing similar genetic responses in them. He's somehow triggering their own healing potential at a molecular level." The discovery caught the attention of the world's leading medical institutions. Harvard Medical School proposed a joint research project, while the Mayo Clinic wanted to study applications for human rehabilitation. But it was a small rural hospital in India that provided the most compelling opportunity to test their findings. Dr. Priya Sharma, head of pediatric rehabilitation at the hospital, had been following their work closely. She reached out with a challenging case, a group of children recovering from a bus accident, all dealing with severe physical and emotional trauma. "We don't have access to sophisticated equipment," she explained via video call. "But if Thunder's Spirit's healing ability works at the genetic level, perhaps we can develop protocols that don't rely on technology." This challenge led to another evolution in their approach. Sarah and her team began developing what they called essence protocols, therapeutic techniques that captured the core elements of Thunder's Spirit's healing method without requiring expensive equipment or facilities. They started by documenting every aspect of Thunder's Spirit's interactions with patients, his movements, breathing patterns, energy shifts, and even the subtle changes in his presence during healing sessions. Dr. Rodriguez's team analyzed these patterns for correlations with genetic changes, while Maya worked on translating them into teachable techniques. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. When implemented at the Indian hospital, the Essence protocols showed remarkable success. Children who had been withdrawn and resistant to traditional therapy began responding, their recovery rates accelerating beyond what conventional methods had achieved. One case particularly stood out, a young boy named Arun, who had lost both legs in the accident, seemed to form a spiritual connection with Thunder's Spirit through their virtual sessions. Despite the physical distance, the horse's presence had a profound effect on the boy's healing process. "It's like he's here with me," Arun explained through an interpreter. "I can feel his strength becoming my strength." The success in India led to a new initiative. They began training local healers worldwide in the Essence protocols, creating a network of healing centers that combined Thunder's Spirit's methods with indigenous healing traditions. Meanwhile, Dr. Rodriguez's genetic research revealed another surprising discovery. The healing responses they observed weren't limited to physical injuries. They extended to emotional and psychological trauma as well. This finding bridged the gap between physical and mental health treatment, suggesting a more holistic approach to healing. The implications of their work expanded beyond medical applications. environmental scientists became interested in studying how Thunder's spirit's genetic adaptations might help understand ecosystem recovery and resilience. Their research began to influence fields from ecology to psychology. One morning, as Sarah watched Thunder's spirit work with a group of young patients, she noticed something remarkable. The horse was adapting his approach for each child in ways that precisely matched their genetic profiles, as shown by Maya's monitoring system. He's not just responding to their visible needs, Dr. Rodriguez observed. He's somehow sensing and responding to their genetic predisposition for healing. This could revolutionize personalized medicine. The discovery led to a new phase in their research. They began mapping what they called healing resonance patterns, the unique ways in which Thunder's spirit's presence influenced different genetic profiles. This work laid the foundation for more targeted and effective rehabilitation protocols. Wildheart, too, showed similar abilities, though his genetic adaptations had developed differently. His transformation from traumatized Mustang to healing partner had created its own unique genetic signature, offering insights into how trauma recovery could actually enhance healing abilities. The implications of their findings reached far beyond the medical community. Educators began studying how understanding genetic responses to trauma could improve learning environments. Social workers incorporated elements of their approach into community healing programs. Even conflict resolution specialists showed interest in how their methods might apply to broader social healing. One particularly moving application emerged in a program for incarcerated youth. A correctional facility in California implemented their Essence protocols, using virtual connections with Thunder's spirit to help young offenders process trauma and develop emotional resilience. The results were transformative. Recidivism rates dropped significantly among participants, and many reported profound personal changes. One young man's statement captured the program's impact. If a horse can turn his worst experience into something that helps others heal, maybe I can too. As their understanding of genetic healing responses deepened, they began to see patterns that connected all their previous work. The movement therapy, emotional resonance, and even the global healing sessions they'd conducted all could be understood through the lens of genetic adaptation and cellular memory. Sarah found herself increasingly amazed by how far their work had come. What had started as a simple act of compassion, refusing to give up on an injured horse, had evolved into a groundbreaking field of study that was changing how the world understood healing. During a quiet moment in the stable, she shared these thoughts with Thunder's spirit. The horse listened with his usual gentle attention, then did something unexpected. He walked to where Wildheart was resting and gently nudged him awake. Together, the two horses began a slow, synchronized movement that they'd never performed before. Maya's monitoring system lit up with activity. "The genetic markers," she called out, studying her screen. "They're showing completely new patterns. It's like they're developing a new healing language." Dr. Rodriguez rushed to analyze the data. "This is extraordinary," she breathed. "They're not just adapting anymore. They're innovating, creating new possibilities for healing that we never imagined." The implications of this moment would take months to fully understand. But one thing was immediately clear. Their journey of discovery was far from over. Every new finding opened doors to deeper understanding, suggesting that the true potential of healing was still untapped. As the sun set on another groundbreaking day at the center, Sarah watched Thunder Spirit and Wild Heart continue their synchronized dance of healing. In their movements, she saw the future of their work, a future where healing wasn't just about recovering from injury or trauma, but about discovering new possibilities for growth and transformation. The genetic research had shown them something profound, that healing wasn't just a return to what was, but a journey into what could be. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of pain carried within it the seeds of transformation, not just for the individual, but for all those they might touch through their own journey of recovery. An unexpected crisis put their innovative healing methods to the ultimate test. A devastating earthquake in Nepal had left hundreds of animals injured and traumatized, while local communities struggled with both physical and emotional recovery. The United Nations reached out to Sarah's center, requesting their assistance in what would become their most challenging mission yet. "We need more than just veterinary care," the UN coordinator explained during an emergency video conference. "These communities have lost everything. The bond between people and their animals is crucial for recovery. Your methods could be exactly what they need." Within days, Sarah had assembled a specialized team. Thunder Spirit and Wild Heart couldn't make the journey, but their genetic healing protocols could. Maya had compressed their monitoring system into portable units, while Dr. Rodriguez prepared genetic testing kits that could work in field conditions. The scene that greeted them in Nepal was heart-wrenching. The earthquake had left ancient villages in ruins, and makeshift animal shelters were overwhelmed. But amidst the devastation, Sarah saw something familiar: the unbreakable bond between humans and animals, surviving even in the darkest circumstances. They set up their base in a monastery that had survived the quake. The monks, who had been caring for injured animals, welcomed their advanced healing methods while offering their own insights into spiritual healing. This collaboration would lead to unprecedented breakthroughs. A young monk named Tenzin proved particularly receptive to their methods. Working with injured yaks and horses, he demonstrated an innate ability to replicate the healing presence they had documented in Thunder's Spirit. Maya's sensors showed his genetic markers shifting in patterns remarkably similar to their equine healers. "It's not just about technique," Tenzin explained through an interpreter. "When we open ourselves to the animal's suffering, we become channels for healing energy." Your horses understood this naturally. This observation led to a powerful fusion of their scientific methods with traditional Buddhist healing practices. They began incorporating meditation and mindfulness into their protocols, discovering that focused consciousness could enhance genetic healing responses. One breakthrough came with a badly injured snow leopard found in the mountains. The rare cat, usually impossible to treat due to its wild nature, responded to their combined approach of genetic healing protocols and meditation-based energy work. The leopard's recovery would later become a symbol of hope for the entire region. Dr. Rodriguez's genetic analysis revealed something extraordinary. The extreme conditions and the fusion of different healing approaches had created new patterns of cellular regeneration. The earthquake survivors, both human and animal, were developing unprecedented resilience at a genetic level. "They're not just healing," she explained, examining the data. "They're evolving. Their genetic response to trauma is creating new possibilities for recovery we've never seen before." The implications extended far beyond disaster response. Their work in Nepal was showing how communities could rebuild, not just physically, but at a deeper cellular level. The bond between humans and animals proved crucial to this process, creating a network of healing that strengthened both species. A young girl named Pema exemplified this phenomenon. She had lost her family's herd of goats in the earthquake and hadn't spoken since. Working with a rescued horse using their protocols, she began to show remarkable changes. Not only did she start speaking again, but her genetic markers showed patterns of resilience that could be passed on to future generations. The monastery became a living laboratory of healing innovation. Local healers brought traditional medicines and practices which they integrated with their genetic protocols. The results challenged everything they thought they knew about recovery and adaptation. One elderly healer shared an ancient practice of sound healing, using singing bowls that had survived the earthquake. When combined with their genetic monitoring, they discovered that specific frequencies could enhance cellular regeneration. Maya quickly adapted their technology to incorporate these sound patterns. The success in Nepal attracted attention from other disaster zones. Relief organizations worldwide began requesting their protocols. Sarah's team developed a training program that could quickly prepare local healers to implement their methods, while respecting and incorporating indigenous practices. But perhaps the most profound impact came from an unexpected source. The snow. Leopard, now recovered, refused to return to the wild. Instead, it began showing the same healing abilities they had documented in Thunder's spirit and wild heart. The big cat worked instinctively with other injured animals, its presence triggering rapid healing responses. This suggests something remarkable, Dr. Rodriguez noted. The capacity for healing may be a fundamental trait that crosses species barriers, awakened by trauma but transformed into a gift through proper support. Their work caught the attention of evolutionary biologists. The genetic adaptations they were documenting suggested a new understanding of how species respond to catastrophic events. Rather than just surviving, they could potentially emerge stronger, with enhanced capabilities for healing and resilience. Back at their center, Thunder's spirit and wild heart seemed to sense the importance of their team's work in Nepal. The horses developed new behaviors, working with injured animals in ways that precisely matched the patterns being discovered halfway across the world. Maya's monitoring systems revealed that the horses were actually strengthening their own genetic healing capabilities, as if responding to the expanded understanding their research had uncovered. This suggested a level of consciousness and adaptation they hadn't previously imagined possible. The implications of their discoveries rippled through the scientific community. Research began into how genetic healing responses could be activated in various species, potentially revolutionizing conservation efforts and ecosystem recovery after natural disasters. However, their most significant breakthrough came from observing how the Nepalese communities rebuilt their relationships with their animals. The healing wasn't just physical. It was rebuilding the ancient bonds between humans and the natural world, creating resilience that went beyond individual recovery. As their mission in Nepal drew to a close, they left behind more than just healed bodies. They had helped create a new model of community recovery, one that recognized the deep connection between human and animal welfare, between physical healing and spiritual renewal. A year later, Sarah returned to Nepal to document the long-term impacts of their work. The monastery had become a thriving healing center, combining their protocols with traditional practices. The snow leopard, now known as the Guardian, had become a symbol of hope throughout the region. More importantly, the genetic resilience they had documented had sustained and grown. New generations born in the area showed enhanced healing capabilities, suggesting that their work had initiated a positive evolutionary response to trauma. The lessons from Nepal transformed their approach back home. They began incorporating more spiritual and community-based elements into their work, recognizing that true healing required a holistic approach that honored both scientific and traditional wisdom. Thunder's spirit and wild heart seemed to embody this integrated approach. Their healing abilities had grown even stronger, influenced by the discoveries made across the world. They worked with an awareness that seemed to transcend ordinary animal consciousness, as if they understood their role in a larger story of healing and evolution. As Sarah watched them work with a new group of injured animals, she reflected on how far they had come from that first decision to save one injured horse. Their work had evolved into something that touched not just individual lives, but the very way species adapted and healed. The Nepal mission had shown them that healing was more than just recovery. It was an opportunity for transformation, for discovering new capabilities that lay dormant until awakened by challenge. In facing their greatest crisis, they had uncovered some of the most profound truths about the nature of healing itself. Winter descended with an unexpected challenge that would test everything they had learned. A mysterious illness began affecting horses across the country, baffling veterinarians and threatening equestrian communities. The symptoms were unlike anything they'd seen before, a combination of physical weakness, behavioral changes, and a complete loss of the will to recover. Sarah received the first call from a prestigious racing stable in Kentucky. Their entire herd had fallen ill, and traditional treatments were failing. Despite their advanced medical facilities and unlimited resources, horses were deteriorating rapidly. The racing industry was in panic. "We've tried everything," the stable's head veterinarian explained during an emergency consultation. "These horses just seem to have lost their spirit. It's like they've forgotten how to heal." Thunder's spirit and wild heart, remarkably, showed complete immunity to the condition. More intriguingly, their presence seemed to have a protective effect on other horses at the center. Maya's monitoring systems detected unique energy patterns emanating from the two horses, suggesting they had developed some form of natural defense mechanism. Dr. Rodriguez arrived with her genetic research team, eager to study this phenomenon. "Their genetic adaptation isn't just about healing anymore," she observed, analyzing fresh data. "They've evolved some kind of energetic shield, and they're sharing it with others." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lily, now studying veterinary medicine herself, noticed something while reviewing footage of Thunder's spirit's interactions with affected horses. "Look at his breathing pattern," she pointed out. "It changes when he's working with sick horses. He's not just healing them, he's teaching them how to heal themselves." This observation led to a revolutionary understanding of the illness. It wasn't just a physical condition. It was affecting the horse's innate ability to activate their own healing responses. Thunder's spirit and wild heart weren't just treating symptoms. They were showing other horses how to reconnect with their natural healing abilities. Sarah and her team developed a new protocol, combining their genetic research with the horse's instinctive healing methods. They called it the Awakening Protocol, as it focused on reactivating dormant healing capabilities, rather than fighting the illness directly. The implementation began at the Kentucky stable. Thunder's Spirit and Wildheart worked with small groups of affected horses, while Maya's sensors tracked the energetic and genetic changes. The results were remarkable. Within days, sick horses began showing signs of improvement. More importantly, they started exhibiting the same protective patterns that had kept Thunder's Spirit and Wildheart immune. Word spread quickly through the equestrian community. Soon, their center became the headquarters for a nationwide recovery effort. They trained teams of healers, both human and equine, to implement the Awakening Protocol across the country. The most powerful demonstration of their method came during a session with a champion racehorse named Solar Wind. The stallion had been at the peak of his career when the illness struck, reducing him to a shadow of his former self. His owners, who had once valued him only for his racing potential, now watched in amazement as he responded to Thunder's Spirit's guidance. "It's not just about getting them back on the track," Sarah explained to the gathered observers. "It's about helping them remember who they are at their core, their innate strength and wisdom." The crisis also led to an unexpected collaboration with environmental scientists. Dr. Jennifer Hayes, a leading ecologist, suggested that the illness might be nature's way of pushing for evolution in domestic horses. "These animals have been bred for human purposes for so long," she theorized. "Perhaps this is a wake-up call, forcing them to reconnect with their wild wisdom." This perspective influenced their approach to treatment. Instead of just fighting the illness, they began creating environments that supported natural healing and adaptation. The center transformed its facilities into more naturalistic settings, allowing horses to access their instinctive healing behaviors. Maya developed new applications for her monitoring technology, creating what she called an energetic mapping system that could track the spread of healing influence from recovered horses to those still affected. The patterns revealed showed an intricate network of energy exchange that challenged conventional understanding of how animals communicate and heal. The crisis also sparked a deeper examination of the human-animal bond. Affected horses showed faster recovery when their owners participated in the healing process, learning alongside them how to activate natural healing responses. This led to the development of joint human-equine healing programs that would later be adapted for other species. One particularly moving case involved a retired police horse named Guardian. After falling ill, he had completely withdrawn, refusing to respond to any treatment. His former partner, Officer Michael Chen, was devastated. The bond between them had seen them through years of service, and watching Guardian decline seemed to break something in both of them. Sarah invited Officer Chen to participate in a specialized session with Thunder's Spirit and Guardian. What happened next astonished everyone. As Thunder's Spirit guided Guardian through the Awakening Protocol, Officer Chen began experiencing parallel healing responses. His own chronic injuries from years of service started showing improvement. "They're not just healing each other," Dr. Rodriguez observed, studying their genetic markers. "They're evolving together, creating new possibilities for both species." This discovery led to a broader understanding of interspecies healing. The crisis had revealed that the boundaries between human and animal healing were more fluid than anyone had imagined. Thunder's Spirit and Wildheart seemed to innately understand this, adapting their approach to support both human and equine healing simultaneously. The implications extended beyond the immediate crisis. Their work began influencing fields from medical research to psychological therapy. The ability to activate natural healing responses had applications far beyond treating a specific illness. As winter turned to spring, the epidemic began to recede. But the horses that recovered were different, stronger, more resilient, and more connected to their natural healing abilities. The crisis had forced an evolutionary leap, guided by the wisdom of two horses who had once been considered broken beyond repair. The racing industry, too, was transformed. Many stables adopted the center's holistic approach to horse care, recognizing that true health went beyond physical conditioning. The focus shifted from merely training horses to supporting their overall well-being and natural development. Sarah found herself reflecting on the journey one evening, watching Thunder's Spirit and Wild Heart work with a group of recovering horses. The two healers moved with quiet confidence, their presence alone seeming to awaken something profound in those around them. They've always known, she realized. They were just waiting for us to remember too. The crisis had taught them that healing wasn't just about overcoming illness. It was about awakening the wisdom that lay dormant within all living beings. Thunder's Spirit and Wild Heart had shown that even the darkest challenges could lead to unexpected evolution, creating new possibilities for healing and growth. As the last affected horses recovered, leaving their center stronger than before, Sarah understood that each challenge they faced wasn't just a test. It was an opportunity to discover new depths of healing potential. The epidemic had forced them to look beyond conventional medicine, leading them to truths about healing that would continue to evolve and expand. The legacy of this crisis would extend far beyond the equestrian world. It had demonstrated that, when faced with seemingly impossible challenges, the answer often lay in returning to fundamental truths about healing, adaptation, and the profound connection between all living beings. 10 years had passed since that fateful day when Sarah refused to euthanize Thunder's Spirit. The rehabilitation center had grown into a global institution, its methods revolutionizing both veterinary and human medicine. But on this particular morning, as dawn painted the sky in gentle pastels, Sarah faced a different kind of challenge. Thunder's Spirit was showing signs of aging. Though still majestic and powerful in his healing work, his movements had slowed, and silver streaked his once dark mane. The horse that had defied death and transformed countless lives was entering his twilight years. "He's not sick," Dr. Rodriguez assured her after a thorough examination. "He's just entering a new phase of life. But look at this." She pointed to the latest genetic scans. His healing capabilities aren't diminishing, they're evolving. It's as if he's preparing for a final transformation. This observation proved prophetic. Over the next few weeks, Thunder's Spirit began exhibiting new behaviors. Instead of working directly with patients, he started teaching younger horses the healing techniques he had pioneered. Wild Heart, his longtime companion, joined him in this mission, creating what the staff began calling the Legacy Program. Maya's monitoring systems captured something extraordinary during these teaching sessions. The genetic markers for healing ability are being transmitted more efficiently than ever, she explained, showing Sarah the data. It's like they're downloading their lifetime of wisdom into the next generation. The discovery sparked intense Interest from the scientific community. Researchers from around the world gathered to study this unprecedented phenomenon. The deliberate transmission of acquired healing abilities from one generation to the next. But it wasn't just about genetics. The younger horses were learning something deeper, an ancient wisdom about healing that transcended physical techniques. Thunder's Spirit and Wild Heart had become more than healers. They were becoming spiritual teachers. A pivotal moment came during a visit from a group of indigenous healers. As they observed Thunder's Spirit working with his students, an elderly shaman from the Amazon spoke up. "He's not just teaching healing," she said through an interpreter. "He's showing them how to connect with the universal life force. This is knowledge our ancestors understood, but many have forgotten." This insight led to a new phase in their research. Working with the indigenous healers, they began documenting the spiritual aspects of Thunder's Spirit's teaching methods. The results challenged conventional scientific understanding, suggesting that healing involved dimensions beyond the physical realm. One morning, Sarah arrived to find Thunder's Spirit had gathered all the horses in the main pasture. What followed was unlike anything they'd seen before, a synchronized movement that seemed to pulse with energy. Maya's senses went wild, recording unprecedented levels of healing energy. "It's a gift," the shaman explained, watching the display. "He's sharing his final teachings." In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. Horses that had participated in that gathering began showing healing abilities that matched or even exceeded Thunder's Spirit's capabilities. It wasn't just mimicry. They had somehow absorbed his lifetime of wisdom and were building upon it. The implications were staggering. Thunder's Spirit hadn't just overcome his own injuries and helped others heal. He had initiated an evolutionary leap in healing consciousness. His legacy would live on through generations of horses, each adding their own wisdom to the foundation he had built. As word spread about these developments, the center received an unexpected visitor, Marcus Reynolds, the owner who had once ordered Thunder's Spirit's death. Now elderly himself, he came not with demands, but with tears of gratitude. "I thought I knew everything about value," he admitted, watching Thunder's Spirit guide his students. "But this horse, he's shown us all what true worth means. He's created something eternal." Sarah understood what he meant. The center had grown beyond her wildest dreams, with branches worldwide and thousands of lives transformed. But Thunder's Spirit's greatest achievement wasn't in the buildings or programs. It was in the new understanding of healing he had awakened in both humans and animals. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of glory, Thunder's Spirit led his last teaching session. The gathered horses moved in perfect harmony, their bodies creating patterns of light and energy that seemed to dance in the fading sunlight. Wild Heart stood beside him, their presence radiating a peace that touched everyone. Present. "This isn't an ending," Sarah realized, watching the scene unfold. "It's a beginning." Thunder's Spirit's legacy continued to grow in unexpected ways. The horses he had taught began developing their own unique healing techniques, building on his foundation while adding their own wisdom. The center became a living laboratory of evolving healing consciousness. Research showed that each generation of horses showed enhanced healing abilities, suggesting that Thunder's Spirit had triggered an ongoing evolutionary process. But more importantly, they carried forward his essential teaching, that healing was about awakening the wisdom that lay dormant within all living beings. The center established the Thunder's Spirit Fellowship, bringing together healers, scientists, and spiritual leaders from around the world to study and expand upon his teachings. His methods influenced fields from medicine to environmental conservation, showing how the principles of healing could be applied to global challenges. As Thunder's spirit enjoyed his final years, surrounded by the community he had helped create, Sarah often reflected on that first decisive moment when she had refused to give up on him. One choice, made from the heart, had sparked a revolution in healing that would continue long after they were gone. The story of Thunder's spirit, from broken racehorse to spiritual teacher, became legend, inspiring others to look beyond surface limitations to the deeper potential within. His journey showed that sometimes the greatest gifts come from our deepest wounds, and that healing is not just about recovery, but about transformation. In his twilight years, Thunder's spirit remained a powerful presence at the center, his silver mane catching the light like a crown. Though he no longer worked directly with patients, his wisdom continued to flow through every aspect of their work, touching lives in ever-widening circles. During his final sunset, surrounded by those he had taught and healed, Thunder's spirit stood tall and proud, his eyes bright with the wisdom of years. As the sky painted itself in magnificent colors, he seemed to glow with an inner light, his presence a testimony to the enduring power of hope, healing, and the courage to believe in possibilities. His legacy lived on, not just in the genetic changes he had triggered or the healing methods he had pioneered, but in the fundamental truth he had demonstrated, that within every being lies the potential for extraordinary transformation, waiting only for the courage to believe and the wisdom to nurture it into being. And so the story of Thunder's spirit became more than a tale of healing. It became a beacon of hope, showing that even in our darkest moments, we carry within us the seeds of remarkable transformation. His journey from the brink of death to becoming a teacher of healing wisdom reminded all who heard it that sometimes our greatest challenges can lead us to our highest purpose. The center continued to grow and evolve, carrying forward his teachings into new generations. But at its heart remained the simple truth that Sarah had recognized on that first rainy morning, that every life holds infinite potential, and that healing is not just about fixing what's broken, but about discovering what's possible. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.